Okay, this is a clarification video. This is the first segment. And all I'm doing is clarifying a little bit of terminology. You should be familiar with all this. Everybody did it in class. But, we went a little further in class last time. You want to make sure that you know what we're talking about. So here we have a rectangle. And we're going to assume a rectangle is a square. And actually, in this case, it'll be 4 by 4. So we have the red dot. Now, so here's the red dot. I'm not going to label, well, I'm not going to label any of this. Here's the red dot, and these 4 line segments are the boundaries. Now, the equation, boundary line, well, it depends on where the red dot is and on the length and width of the rectangle. Okay, in this case, the rectangle is 4 units. It's not written very well. On 4 units. And this is the origin. Of the coordinate system. So now, we have the x-y coordinate system. Here's x. And here's y. The x-axis is y. So it's a little wobbly there, but you understand what it is. Now we want to write the equations of the lines through the 4 boundary lines. Okay. And let's see, this one up here. Well, this is 4 by 4, then y is 4 up here. So here's y equals 4. Down here, the x-axis we could label as y equals 0. Then left edge is going to be what? Well, it's 4 units here. The origin's here. It's right in the middle of the rectangle. So you got 2 units over here. So it follows that x equals -2 on this boundary. And I'm doing this because I'm not even trying to be neat. X equals 2 on this boundary. Okay, well, that's our 4 boundary lines. Okay, now we do the construction lines. Well, what are the construction lines that coincides with the y-axis? And that construction line is x equals 0. I've got some of the x equals down here and some up here. You put them wherever you think you're going to need them. They could be any place. They can label them top and bottom. We could put an x equals 2 up here and an x equals 2 down here, still labeling this line. Okay. Now we do the first couple of construction lines inside. Well, side. Okay, so let's see, this line here would be x equals -1 because it's halfway between -2 and 2. This one would be x equals 1, halfway between 0 and 2. And those are the only construction lines we need for the exponential graph. Now there's a quadratic graph that I asked you to do for homework, and we'll see how you did on that. Then we do our subdivisions here. We subdivide down the middle, then we go halfway from there to the bottom, halfway from there to the bottom, and halfway from there to the bottom. And let's see, how many times have we done this? 2. And that's all we need to make the exponential graph. So there it is. And now we label the horizontal lines. This is y equals 2, this is y equals 9. Why is this y equals 2? It's halfway from here down to here. Halfway from 4 down to 0, because x equals y equals 4 up here, y equals 0 down here, is y equals 2. And then halfway between 2 and 0 is 1. And halfway between 1 and 0 is 1/2. And halfway between 1/2 and 0 is 1/4. Well, there it is. And the main thing I'm trying to do here, though, I kind of review how to do this, and I think everybody knows, but the terminology, these are construction lines. These are the boundary lines. Okay, I've got 3 vertical construction lines and 4 horizontal construction lines. So when I refer to construction lines, that's what I mean when I refer to boundary lines. That's what I mean. Now, why is this useful? Well, I ask it, give me the coordinates of some points. Okay, well, let's just take a point here. Now, I think that turns out not to be a point on the graph of the exponential function, at least. But what are the coordinates of this point? Well, the coordinates are x, y. So I can say here, x, y equals what? X equals -1 on this line, the reason you just saw. So x is -1, and y equals 1. Now I could ask you to label all the points where construction lines intersect. We're not going to do that because if you label ones that you actually need to answer some of the questions I've asked you, you'll have it. But again, there's terminology, construction lines, boundary lines, and what we mean by labeling a point. And I think most of you don't need this because most of you have picked it up, but there it is for anybody who does. Okay. Now for clarification, segment 2. And I'm going to actually, now I quickly think that needs to be studied out. Clarification, separate segment. Okay, so now we're no longer on clarification first segment, we're in the clarification second segment. If you haven't done what leads up to the note to say, if you didn't do this, didn't understand this completely, or you want to check yourself, check the clarification second segment. Don't be looking at this unless you follow the instructions, because you'll bypass the most important part of the learning process. You'll see how it's done, but you won't understand it as well as if you've done it yourself. Okay. Okay. So, actually, I'm going to look at exactly what my instructions were, so I can be sure to do this in the way you really want me to do it. Okay. Yeah, my instructions, there are two ways to do the instructions. And once they flip this thing a certain way, the second is more constructive than I did the second thing. So I'm going to do it over here. Okay. So what we do again, we start with the boundary square or rectangle. And it's going to be 4 by 4 again. But this time, well, we're going to start with the same construction lines, the same vertical construction lines we used before. Okay. And you can label these. This is x equals -2 on the boundary, x equals -1, x equals 0, x equals 1, x equals 2 on this boundary. Okay. For the horizontal construction lines, we'll start with the usual one right down the middle. But now, instead of going halfway to the bottom, we're going to go halfway to the top. So we go halfway to the top. And we iterate that. We go halfway to the top, then we, same instruction starting here, right? Halfway to the top. And then from here, halfway to the top. Exactly what the instructions say. And I'm doing these clarification videos because some people are better at reading written instructions than others. So that's all I mean. And if that's all the clarification you could stop there and now go ahead and construct the graph. Don't wait for me to construct it, but I am going to. Okay, but stop right now and construct it yourself so you learn something. Okay. Okay, now I'm going to go on. Hopefully you stop if you're using this, and you can check yourself in a minute after you've done construction. Construction is just like what we did over here, but everything's kind of flipped. All right. In this case, we start, instead of starting with a point on the lowest construction line on the left edge, we start with a point on the highest construction line right edge. Now here are the construction lines, the highest one is right here. Remember, the boundary line is not a construction line, so we put a point there. And then what do? Well, instead of moving over one up one, which is a rule for the exponential function, we move over one down one, over one down one, over one down one, over one down one, and we end up at the lower left edge. And then it's very easy to put a curve on that, and I'm not going to show you that curve, because you might just watch me do it and then copy what I did. Figure it out yourself. The smoothest possible curve goes through these points, are the simplest curves you can draw. Some of the curves we draw in this course are a little less simple. And one reason I start with the exponential function is it's probably the simplest one to draw. Could be the quadratic, and you have that one from home. So there it is. Okay, now I certainly hope you did the homework and followed the instructions. But just for clarification, part 3. We're going to construct the toolkit quadratic function. We start by following the same, well, we can start with the grid that we used for the exponential function, where we cut it down the middle here, and then halfway between here and here, halfway between here and here. Okay, but then we got to go halfway between here and here, halfway to the middle of each of these lines. That's an additional line. So there we have it. Now we've got our vertical lines. Then we just need one more horizontal line. Remember that this line went halfway from here to the lower edge, and then this line's halfway from here to the lower edge, and then this line's halfway from here to the lower edge, and so forth. Well, we're going to do one more line halfway from the lowest line to the lower edge. Kind of hard to get that one exactly right. Want it to be there. And we're actually going to, well, it's going to be there just for one simple purpose, which is to be skipped. Okay, well, we draw our red dot. This line is shot. Well, that red. Okay. So, what's the rule for the basic quadratic function? Start in the upper left-hand corner, and then go right 1 down 2, right 1 down 2, right 1 down 2, which takes you to the red dot, and then right 1 up 2, right 1 up 2, right 1 up 2, which takes you up to the upper right-hand edge. And if you haven't already done that, you ought to sketch that picture and do it by the instructions I just gave you. But I'm going to go ahead and do it now. So you should stop and do this if you haven't already done it. And if you have already done it, you can kind of check, see if you did it right. And start the upper left-hand corner, over one line, which takes you over this line, down 2 lines. Then over one line, down 2 lines. Over one line, down 2, which takes you to the red dot. Then over 1 up 2 takes you to here. Over 1 up 2 takes you to here. Over 1 up 2 takes you to here. And you sketch your smooth curve. And if you do this, third corner. Here. Haven't drawn it perfectly, but it's pretty good. Okay. I mean, I think it's pretty good. It's a lopsided square to start with. So it's not a great parabola, but if you do it accurately, if you do it neatly, you want to get a nice looking parabola, you can do it. This parabola is good enough to serve the purposes of this part of the course. And if you draw a better one, I think just about everybody can, that's great. So there it is. That's the clarification part. Well, there's more to this clarification because now we want to do something with it. Okay, now starts clarification part 4. Make sure you've done your best to follow the instructions. If you're just checking, well, you can kind of flip through this pretty quickly. So here we have same grid we used here, but with the same vertical lines in the grid that we used here, but we're kind of flipping it upside down. So, the lines are then going to, the horizontal lines are then going to get closer to the top boundary, whereas here they got closer to the lower boundary. Okay, so we start with a horizontal line dividing the square or rectangle in two, and we then go halfway to the upper boundary, and then we iterate that 3 more times. Halfway to the upper boundary, I think maybe it's 2. Yeah. Okay. We'll figure it out when we get there. Okay, so we go halfway from here to the upper boundary, then halfway from here to the upper boundary. And close one. Okay, and now we plot our points. We start, okay, again, if you were unclear on how to do this, stop, follow the instructions. Instructing. Quadratic graph reflected about the horizontal. Okay, so we start in the lower right hand corner. Move left 1, up 2, left 1, up 2, left 1, up 2. That takes us to the upper boundary. And at that point, we move left 1 down 2, left 1 down 2, left 1, left 1 down 2. And there we have points. And again, stop and do this if you didn't get it already before you draw the curve. Okay. And now I'm actually going to draw this curve for you. Not great, but it should be symmetric around the middle because of the symmetry in the way the instructions are posed. Okay. So there we have it. This is an upside down version of this. And they're both important, as you're going to see before too much longer.